Welcome back, humor consumers, to the Life Happens Laugh Anyway podcast. I'm comedian Tracy DeGraff.
And I'm Catherine, co-host and bestie.
Welcome to the Pod Lab.
Thank you.
Bestie, co-host.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are. In the Pod Lab, we're doing episode number 225. That's a big number.
It is.
For us.
It is a big number.
We're consistent.
Yeah. We
Praise
are
God.
very good. Pat, pat on my back. Pat, pat on your back.
Catherine, if somebody's tuning in for the first time, for one thing, they know that they have 224 other episodes that they could binge. Mm-hmm. If they like this one, we'll see how it goes. Mm-hmm. But could you explain, give them a little overview of why we even started this podcast, and then tell them how they could get involved?
Well, you are a comedian and you were doing shows, but then the pandemic happened. So no shows were happening. And your manager said, you should do a podcast.
Yeah.
So then you said, you're doing this with me. And so off we go doing the podcast. And we've been at it for 3 years.
Can't even remember. Yeah. This is 2025.
Yeah.
So
because
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well,
we have 225 episodes. That's a lot.
That is a lot. And we put them out weekly. And you, listener, can join us by going to tracydegraff.com. Follow the prompts. That's how you can contribute. But you can also, they can click on there to listen, right?
They can.
Or they could
if they go to any place where they have a podcast, they can find us there. Or they could go to my website and get to our podcast there. And, of course, they can sponsor us.
Yeah, why not?
Right. Come on now. $5 a month is what we typically receive from our listeners. We have a group of sponsors that we call humor contributors. Mm-hmm. They've crossed over from consumer to contributor. And it really does help us. And we're wanting to take this podcast places.
Yeah.
So we need your support.
Right.
All right, let's get into it. Episode 225. The title of this episode is The Tylenol Painkiller Story. The Tylenol Murders. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
We have some takeaways. Because we watched the documentary called Painkiller, and wow.
Yeah, wow.
Wowza.
Yeah. By the way.
What?
So Kenny, he found out that I watched it with you.
Okay.
He's like, he made a sulky face, and he's like, well, I thought we were going to watch it together. So, because he's the one that told me about it.
Oh, my God.
I had to watch it again. And guess what? He slept through the whole thing.
You watched all the episodes? You binged the whole thing?
Had to. He's my husband. He sponsors us.
Oh, right. Well, then you're extra. You got extra info.
I know.
All right. Well, we watched the Painkiller documentary. Catherine watched it twice, and we felt like it could be some good information to bring to our podcast, because we do like to do a documentary here and there, roughly one a month or so. We like to, if we can.
And we think that most of our listeners are in the age group that we are, and they would remember this quite well.
Right, especially if you're in the Midwest, which is also where we are in the Chicago area. So these are the takeaways from the episode. If you stick with us through the end, we're going to go through an overview of the crime, plus we're going to give our take on it. We're also going to talk about what American culture was like before the murders and after the murders, which is kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It really
is.
A
change, just like the pandemic changed things. So did this incident.
Yeah, it sure did. And then I have some trivia questions that are from 1982.
I'm so glad.
I know.
Love that.
I'm going to quiz Catherine. There's only 5 questions. I quizzed Ron before we came in here, and he got most of them right, but he did miss 1 or 2.
Okay.
So we'll see how you score versus
Uh-oh.
Muffin.
Pressure's on.
All right. Well, Catherine, since you watched the documentary twice to please your best friend and your husband, why don't you give our listeners an overview? If somebody had never heard of the Tylenol Murders, give them an overview of what happened.
Back in 1982, there were 7 people that had passed away, and it was traced back to almost right away, and we'll get into that, that it came from Tylenol bottles. This happened in the Chicago suburban area, the north suburbs, several different towns from different grocery stores. And it just baffled the authorities, the police, detectives, then FBI. They had hundreds of officials on this, and they never could really figure out for sure who it was. They did narrow it down to one person that they followed for decades. But this man, he just kept, they couldn't get him because they didn't have physical evidence. But it seemed to me, now you, what did you think about it toward the end of the documentary? There was a new detective from Arlington Heights that they interviewed, and he could not say very much, but there's something going on with DNA. Right. And it sounds like they're closing in on, and they might, I don't know, but they were alluding to the fact, at least the documentary was, that there's new evidence and it might be linked to DNA.
Well, when you think about the way that science has changed from 1982 to 2025, or I don't know when that guy was talking, but it's changed a lot. And so they can grab DNA from multiple ways. It's not just a thumbprint or a fingerprint like it used to be. Now, if you touched something,
yeah,
they don't need the print. They can get the DNA off of it some way, somehow.
They can. So there was I don't know if she was a scientist or what, but she works at this place where the actual Tylenol bottles and some of the capsules that were that had the poison in it. Did I say that they had cyanide in them? I don't think I did. The poison was cyanide, and they were able to extract DNA from those bottles.
Right, and they said that back in the day, in 1982, they couldn't connect them with the bottles DNA-wise. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe now in the 2020s and beyond, maybe now they have different methods of running that DNA to connect it. I don't know. Or maybe they have somebody else totally, but kind of looks like it was, the guy.
Yeah. It used to be where when DNA first started, surfacing and solving crimes and such, you had to have a lot of it to do that. And more and more now, it's just, just touching, like you mentioned, just touching it, and they're able to figure things out. And I absolutely am fascinated by the way, because of Ancestry.com and all those places where you find crimes. They solve crimes, and it is amazing. I can't reiterate it, but just the way the links go from a far removed cousin to, and it just narrows down to where it can only be one person, and it's like the chances of it being someone else is like 1 in a trillion or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
To me, as a Christian believer, right, it just makes me all the more fascinated with God and how he created us and how DNA works.
That's right.
It's
we
crazy.
are all individually created and made different.
Yeah.
Made in his image, but yet all different DNA. It's amazing.
By the way, stay tuned, because at the end of this podcast, we're going to share a little inspiration about that very thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing about this documentary, the nurse.
That's exactly what I just wanted to talk about. I was like, let's talk about the nurse.
Let's talk about the nurse.
If it weren't for that nurse.
Yeah, Dunzo.
Okay.
Tell our listeners what happened.
This nurse, Helen, they interviewed her for this documentary. She's now 84 going on 85. She was 44, 45 at the time. And a woman, a mother, who worked. And she was a nurse. And the neighborhood that she lived in, not many women worked. And if they did, the only options they really had in that era, this 1982, were secretary, nurse,
or teacher.
And teacher.
Yeah.
I would say airline stewardess too, that some of them were. But anyway, and the paramedic that came to the scene of the first family that we see in the documentary is a Polish family that had emigrated from Poland. And 3 of the family members died. And that story, how it happened, was horrific.
Yeah.
One of the brothers, he was like early 30s. He had passed away. His name was Adam. And then the family was in the hospital. They went home to plan out some funeral arrangements. And then another brother just dropped, and he didn't die right away, but he just dropped, and then his wife was hysterical, as one would be.
Right.
And she grabs the paramedic's arm, and then she dropped. And they were in the hospital, I don't know how long, but they passed away shortly after that. But all that to say, the paramedic that I'm talking about, the lieutenant paramedic, he knew this nurse, Helen, and he knew... I don't know. He just knew that she's a curious person. I don't know what gave him.
He had her phone number in his pocket.
He sure did. And he just thought, I'm going to call her. Of all people.
So hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, you have to remember, back in the 80s, nobody had a cell phone. Nobody.
Right.
Okay? So he had her phone number in his pocket.
Right.
He had to pull out the phone number and go to a wall and dial her up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And he just had... Well, also, he just had this intuition that said she'd be helpful.
Yeah, and boy, was she helpful.
Exactly. And I loved watching her interview. She said nurses are curious people, and that's how you help people. You have to get to know what's really wrong with them.
Yeah.
So anyway,
she said even nosy. She
said
she was curious and nosy.
Yeah, the person doing the interview on her said, "What made you go to the garbage?" Which I'll get to that in a minute. She goes, "'Cause I'm nosy."
And she said bossy too. She said you have to be all these things. You have to be that to be a nurse. I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
That.
So and you know what? She's a listener, because what she said was, when she heard the story of this family, they're called the Janices. When she heard the story, she said, it's got to be the Tylenol.
It was the common denominator, because these people were young, and there wasn't any way that three people in the same family could die of a heart attack on the same day.
The hospital said it was a heart attack. That's right.
Yeah, and she said, this is impossible. There's no way. But they had all taken Tylenol. And so she said, it has to be the Tylenol.
And she had the foresight to get it. So she went to the house, and she had permission. She got the bottle of the Tylenol and counted how many were in there, and noticed 6 were missing, 3 people dead. They each had 2. She knew. And then she even went to the store, she went through the garbage to get the receipt so that the authorities would know where it came from. She tells the authorities, of course, mind you, she's a woman, she's in her shorts, she's telling the police what she believes.
Theory.
And of course they scoff at it and kind of dismiss her. But then a young girl, a 12-year-old in, not Elgin, another town.
Suburb of Chicago.
Yeah, another suburb. She passed away. She had Tylenol. Yeah. Then they knew for sure. But it turned out to be 7 total. And talk about kind of like, in that era, it was like a pandemic. It was
shocking, and it was sudden. And it was affecting everybody.
It was definitely an epidemic. And I do remember this. They didn't do this in my suburb where I grew up, but I remember this happening in the news. They didn't have a way to mass communicate other than radio and television. And so the police cars went around with megaphones and said, don't take your Tylenol. Please give your Tylenol to, wherever, because they had to collect all of these Tylenol bottles, especially the ones with capsules.
Yeah.
And they counted, or rather they inspected, like at one point it was 39,000 capsules and 39 equal amount of tablets, I guess. And
they had to test them.
They had to test them. But in order to do that, of course, they had to let this be known that people had to turn them in. They even went to the CHA housing because it was thought that not everybody had TVs. They had to go to all those places, knock on the doors, ask them, 1, to not take Tylenol, and 2, hand it over. It was a scary time. And
it was.
It sure was. And very baffling, very paranoia, was set in, because then there were copycat incidences, and I can fully remember that, because this happened September 29th. Soon after, there was a couple that were beginning of October. Well, what's after that? Halloween.
Yeah.
So then there was the scare for Halloween. There were things popping up like needles in apples and razor blades.
Which that stuff went back to the 70s too, because I remember going trick-or-treating in the 70s and my parents checking my candy and looking for needles and razor blades. So some sicko was out there, early on doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is sad. Let's talk about the culture for a moment.
Yeah.
Of before this happened, okay? So when you think about it, before the Tylenol murders happened and some nut job went out and gathered up bottles of Tylenol, replaced the medication with poisonous cyanide, and then put the bottles back on the shelf for someone to purchase at random. Just random.
Right. And they were able to do that because the cartons weren't glued. They were folded.
Right.
There was no safety seal. And then there was no, how difficult it is to open those caps. You push down and twist. They didn't have that either.
Do you know why they didn't have it? They had the technology for it.
They did. Well, of course, Johnson & Johnson, they owned the company that made the Tylenol. They said they couldn't foresee this happening, but somebody had said, somebody within the company had suggested that they do it. They do it. And, of course, it's a money thing.
Right, but you hit the nail on the head when you said what they said, which was we couldn't foresee this company coming, right? No, nobody would think that would happen.
Right.
Because in 1982, if I go back to my neighborhood in 1982, and I lived in Depew, Illinois, a little town of 1,900 people, no one ever locked their doors. Now, I don't know about the Chicago area back then, but in my little town, we couldn't even find a key. We never had a key to the door.
Yeah.
The door was always open. And you shut the door, but you didn't lock the door. Our cars sat outside, unlocked.
It's funny. Everybody that I knew, my friends, they all had their houses unlocked, cars unlocked. Guess who didn't?
Your mom.
My parents. It was like Fort Knox. We would be hanging out at the neighbors, in the back, and I'd have to get the key from my dad just to go home, go to the bathroom. I couldn't stand it.
Well, hey, your mom had some foresight.
Well, she was in shock when, shortly after she moved here from England, and the crime scared her to death.
Right. Well, of course it would. But the other thing about the culture back in the 80s and even going further back, but before this crime happened, was parents would let their kids go to the grocery store, walk to school by themselves. We had car seat belts, but they were a suggestion, not a law. I mean, there was just a general, I feel like, sense of, hey, this is America and we're safe.
Yes, right. It was definitely, the culture was, just a sense of safe.
You would never think that this would happen.
No.
Which is why those, the young police officers that poo-pooed the nurse.
She said they were young.
But were they cops or were they doctors? I couldn't remember. Whatever it was.
Yeah, I thought they were authorities. I believe, no, she was telling the police.
Okay. Yeah. Well, whoever it was, I can see why they said, no, there's no way. There's no way that couldn't happen. She was looking at it at the facts. I'm going, yeah, there's a way. Here's how it happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's a little snapshot of the culture of 1982 versus now. Because this case, while the technology was there, because it wasn't very many weeks after all this hit the news that all of a sudden Tylenol has all their packaging, the stuff together.
Yeah. And for a while you couldn't get it, about a month. They pulled it all from the shelves but then, yes, they were a $400 million a month profit. And that was their worth. And so if I remember right, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. Nonetheless, even when they had to, for a month, not sell anything, pull everything from their shelves, they were still the number one over-the-counter medication. They still made money. That's how big they were.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But now, if you look at any kind of medication, sometimes it's hard to get in there and get that medication. Like older people have a hard time getting those bottles open and getting those pills out. And you know how you have the pills where it's an individual little foil thing? So then you got to peel back the one layer. Then you've got to get into like a second layer.
And then get past the cotton ball. It's annoying. It really is. But to this day, though, I think about it every time I open anything. In the back of my mind, it's like, oh, yeah. This is why. But it's so funny. There's one of the detectives or something on the documentary, and he's like trying to open it. He goes, why does it take 5 minutes to open this? He goes, well, I guess it's better than being dead.
Which it is.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm curious about? So we went that way with all the medicines and stuff, but other things are packaged like it's Fort Knox too. Certain chemical like cleaners and stuff and laundry detergent and all that. It seems like everything has a seal on it.
It can't be too safe now anymore.
No,
Have you ever tried to open a Barbie doll? It's like, oh my gosh. It's
a Barbie doll. The Barbie doll must stay erect.
That's right.
In position.
Oh.
And they have those wires that you have to untwist on the back of it.
I could, oh my gosh, Christmas was like a nightmare. I mean, every single thing you opened, they were tied down as if they could actually walk out of their carton.
See, now back in the 80s, life was easy.
You just ripped it open.
You got yourself a Cabbage Patch doll.
Oh my gosh, you know what I miss? Oh my gosh, I used to love the smell of a new doll.
Oh yeah, the plastic.
That plastic, the
chemicals.
toxic plastic. Or whatever it was, or rubber. Smells new and.
I remember that too. Yeah, they don't have that anymore.
I know.
Banned.
Everything's non-toxic. Good old California's like, not in our state.
We'll have none of that.
Right.
Okay. Anything else about before the murders in 1982? Because I want to give you my trivia quiz.
Yeah. Well. Are we still? We're going to talk about when it happened.
Yeah, we're going to go to, other stuff about the crime, but I'm just talking about 1982 right now.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, we're going to do the quiz.
Yeah, I can tell you
you can tell that I'm ready.
You're chomping at the bit.
Okay, this is just a little trivia. 5 trivia questions.
Ooh, yay.
From 1982. Wait, where'd they go?
Uh-oh.
Oh no, are they gonzo?
Well. In the meantime...
Hold on. I don't think that I hit paste. Because I was pasting that. There they are.
Oh, okay.
I got them now.
All right.
Question number 1, Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if you can beat Ron because he got this one right. What was the highest grossing movie? Don't cheat. Look at my screen.
I can't see it.
What was the highest grossing movie of 1982?
E.T.?
Oh, I was going to... It's multiple choice, Catherine.
Oh, I didn't know it was multiple choice.
But E.T. is the correct answer.
Oh, see.
The other question, the multiples were either Rocky 3, E.T., Tootsie, or Star Trek 2.
Okay.
The answer was E.T.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you and Ron got that right. All right, this is a multiple choice.
Okay, so you want to give me the multiple choice.
I want to give you the choice.
I understand. Let's go.
Which artist, unless you know it, you probably do because you know music. Which artist had a breakout hit with Eye of the Tiger in 1982?
Oh, jeez. Eye of the Tiger. It's, doom. Okay.
Do you want to hear the choices?
No. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Oh, wait.
That's what multiple choice.
I know what it is, though. Just go on then,
okay.
For Pete's sakes.
It's either A, Journey, B, Survivor.
Survivor.
Okay, thank you.
Survivor.
Yes.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Ron got that one right, so he's beating you so far.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
I knew it was Survivor. I just said that.
Well, you didn't get it right off the bat.
Because you wanted to read the choices.
He said it right away.
Oh, brother.
Anyway, here's number 3. Ron and Catherine are so much alike. It's no wonder I'm married to him and you're my bestie. They're both the oldest in the family, and they're both very, like, meh. Okay. Number 3. Which famous kids show debuted in 1982? Was it A, Reading Rainbow, B, Sesame Street, C, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, or D, The Muppet Show?
The Muppet Show.
Meh. Reading Rainbow.
Oh.
Ron missed that one too, so you
heard
guys
of
are
it.
tied. Well, by 1982, were you really watching Reading Rainbow? Maybe. You were younger than me.
No, it was junior high.
Okay.
12 or 13.
I might have watched that when I was 12.
I was still sucking my thumb, but
I was.
but
No,
I was
wasn't.
not watching that.
All right, question number 4.
Yeah.
What was the average cost of a gallon of gasoline in 1982? Was it A, 89 cents, B, $1.22, C, $1.93, or D, $2.10?
What was B? $1.22?
$1.22.
I'm going to say that one.
Correct.
Okay.
You and Ron are spot on. All right. What everyday item did not exist yet in 1982?
Seals on a Tylenol thing.
Correcto.
Oh, really?
You win. Ron got that one wrong.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a good thing you watched it twice. Congrats.
All right. Oh, gosh.
The other, it's multiple choice. So,
Oh, my God. Do not ever steal Tracy's thunder, people.
well, I wanted to share the other things that existed in 1982. It was either the tamper-evident safety seals on medicine, which was the correct answer. But we did have back then remote controls for TVs. We had microwaves and we had ATMs. Did you know there were ATMs in the 80s?
Well, okay, so in the documentary, the guy who says he went to Walgreens before he went and got stoned, he's like, oh, we were going to the cash station. I'm like, cash station?
That's what I thought.
I literally remember the first time I heard of it was over in England because my cousin Karen, she was so funny. She's like, oh, all I have to do is put my card in here and bing, out comes the money. And that was the first time I had heard of it. And that was probably around 87.
Well, yeah.
So-
we didn't have cash stations in little old Depew.
We didn't have them in Mokene, I'll tell
that
you
I
that.
knew of.
So they apparently had them in Chicago. But another thing, yes, there were remotes for TVs. Even Archie Bunker had one.
Yeah.
And that was in the 70s.
We had a remote in the 80s.
So I can remember, so our VCR did not have one. So I used to take my dad's Q-tips, or not Q-tips. What are the pool sticks
A
called?
pool stick. A Q stick.
Q-stick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd sit there and, hit the buttons with the Q-stick.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was listening, but I was also reading.
Like, yeah, I could tell.
So sorry. I knew you would be able to tell, so I had to come out with it.
Yeah.
But here's a thought that was in my notes about culture. So in 1982, we had never had yet like a school shooting. We did
No,
not have
right.
Columbine. Like that came in
Yeah.
the 90s or something.
It's so sad because it's like so common now.
That's what I mean is I think we're desensitized to the
for sure.
evil in the world.
Absolutely.
The other thing is we didn't have social media, and so you didn't have people competing for like their 5 minutes of fame or whatever it is on social media. You know what I mean? Like sometimes nut job people, they go around and they try to do things so that they can get some sort of glory.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It was a simple time back then, my friends.
It was simple. And you hit the nail on the head in regards to we're more desensitized.
Yeah.
And I can remember being in social studies class and when this happened.
Yeah.
Because we're back to school. It was September
Fall.
29th when it happened. And
Yep.
we, you go back to school late August, whatever it was back then. And was obviously schools were warning children, and I mean it had to be out there everywhere. And I can remember, and what an appropriate class for that to be discussed in, because it was social studies. It's about
Yeah.
sociology and all that stuff, and it made such an impact on me that I was really worried.
It's disturbing.
I was very worried, for everybody.
For
You
sure.
know? I just can remember being scared.
I mean, you think about even in our nation, as far as like the threats to our nation. Yeah, we had Vietnam was, was over with, but nothing was on our shores here. World War II was a far distant memory, so our kids weren't really thinking about that. We just didn't have it on our radar that something that evil would hit that close to home. I guess that's my point.
I didn't even know what terrorism was. I will say this, though, that every time we would fly to England, my mom liked to go when the terror alert was highest because it was cheaper. And we were
Your mom.
I know.
Man.
It was cheaper. But again, those things were like, I mean, because my parents were like, it's no big thing. It's cheaper. We'll go then.
This doesn't make sense that she would do that, but lock up the doors in Mokina, Illinois, so nobody comes and gets in the house.
I guess she had. Well, that is true. You have a point, but in her mind,
Save the money.
It's way more likely that someone's going to break in her house than we're going to have this.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
I know. So, and anyway, terrorism was something that happened, out the Middle East and elsewhere. It just was not something that you thought about in the U.S. At that time.
So as you can see, it's, it had a big impact. And the ripple effects, like when we were watching the documentary and the old man who lost his two brothers and his sister-in-law, Mr.
Old
Janus, he cried. And I think did he pass?
No, he was alive. He and
his wife passed.
His wife passed.
That's right.
But he and his daughter and granddaughter went to meet the paramedic and the nurse Helen.
Right.
That paramedic still visits the three that had passed away.
The Janus family.
Yeah, the grave.
Well, when he was crying on the documentary, I could feel myself tearing up because I could just see that the pain of this grave loss for nothing. It was a senseless, grave loss. I could imagine a loss if it was like some kind of a tragic natural disaster or an accident, a car accident or something. But this was completely random and senseless.
Absolutely. And evil.
And to the core.
Absolutely. Yeah, when he said, my brothers meant everything to me, that went right through me when he said that. Another thing, too, so this man who's now, elderly, his mother and father, as I said earlier, they emigrated to the U.S. from Poland. They came to this country so that they can prosper and do well.
Yeah. Opportunity.
Exactly. And things were going well for them. And, they weren't well off. They had a lot of kids. But nonetheless, things were going well for them. And then this crime happened. And it's like, welcome to the U.S. I can't tell you how many times I've watched crime things where people have come to the U.S. for opportunity and success, and they're victims of crime.
That's a shame.
I know. In fact, when my mom was moving here, on one end, it was like, oh, wow, Doreen's so lucky she gets to move to the U.S. Everybody wanted to come to America. And what a romantic story. But on the other hand, we're somewhere like, oh my gosh, there's so much crime there. Are you sure you want to go?
Yeah. Well, let's shift gears and talk about the man the only person who was charged in relationship to this crime.
Yeah.
He was not charged for the murders, but he did serve time as a result of this crime. And his first name anyway, was James Lewis, but he went by a bunch of aliases.
He had a lot of aliases.
I think that he was legit crazy.
Oh, yes.
Legit crazy, maybe from the beginning. So tell our audience a little bit about James Lewis.
Well, we find out later on that he was adopted, and he had tried to kill his... Oh, and he was sent to an insane asylum.
Right.
Yeah. Was he a teenager?
Yeah. It was in 1966. He was trying to kill his mother with an axe. Come on now.
Yeah.
That's a red flag, everybody.
And guess what? So he gets away with that. The evidence was wiped away in a tornado, okay? And then, and this is for sure, they traced it he was a tax man, I guess.
Yeah,
an accountant.
He prepared taxes, tax returns.
He was very brilliant man, by the way, very smart, and you could tell he was into himself too. Just
a narcissist.
Absolutely, he defended himself in court for one thing,
right? With no lawyer.
No, yeah,
he was his own lawyer,
and he talks to people like he's above them. So anyway, he had this man was a friend. He was an older friend. Well, they don't know for sure if this man died and then Jim Lewis, whatever his name is, he definitely hacked up his body and hoisted it up to the attic. I do not know why he brought it up to the attic. No clue. And then tried to use his bank account. So they're not sure which happened first.
Right.
He killed him or he took advantage of. But either way, he still did, what's that crime when you...
fraud?
No. Well, that too.
Messing with a dead body?
A corpse. Yeah, there's a specific name for it. But anyway.
It's called wrong.
It's called wrong,
Don't
for sure.
Do it.
Yeah.
And disgusting.
Oh, gosh, yeah. So he gets away with that. And then...
Wait, tell them why he got away with that.
Oh, they didn't read him his Miranda rights.
Come on.
Yeah, there's always some crazy reason. That one's not a crazy reason, but
yes, it is.
Well, the tornado is a crazy,
A tornado happens, okay? Police, come on now.
Yeah,
the Miranda thing, I could probably recite you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law.
Yeah.
You are entitled to an attorney. Can you afford one? If you cannot, I feel like if you learn to read, they should just say you sign off on this paper that says you understand stuff, and we do not, or print it on the money. What? I don't care where you put it.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be a technicality where this man's family had to live with the fact that their loved one was, okay, even if the guy wasn't killed by this James Lewis, even if he was just defrauded by him and his body was, whatever he did to his body, this family did not get justice for that guy.
No, for sure
because
not.
The cops didn't say a few words that they were supposed to say.
I think it happens a lot. It's a shame. I can imagine when their adrenaline is running high, the cops, I mean, and it just slips. I don't know. And how do they even know? If it were me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I read them to him. But
I don't know.
It's my word against his.
No, you know what they should do? On their police uniform, they should print it on their chest.
Yeah.
Well, just say, read this.
Then the criminal would be like, I can't read. No, I didn't see that. Probably. He was on top of me. Anyway, so
bad.
Yeah. So then, after the Tylenol news went out, James Lewis then writes an extortion letter to Johnson & Johnson, and he says that if you wire, what was it?
$1 million
to this bank account
in Chicago. Attached to a business.
Yeah. The killings will stop, or some BS is what it was. So it gets traced back to his wife's employer, which was a travel agent. And the travel agent's like, I didn't use this Pitney Bowes stamp thing. No. And anyway, so James Lewis then has the bright idea to say, oh, no. I'm not tied to this. I was only trying to get back at my wife's employer for stiffing her with some checks that bounced.
Right.
And so he did go to jail for about 10 or 12 years for that. Guess what he does after he gets out?
What?
He tells the detective, oh, by the way, I will help you.
He did that when he was in. He was
when he was in
jail trying to help them solve the murder. Yes.
Okay.
He was in jail for 12 years.
Yeah. Well, he did more when he got out in terms of offering his help.
He also committed another crime when he got out. He kidnapped and raped somebody in 2004.
Right. They couldn't get him for that either.
No.
Oh, no. You know why? the victim
She said she wasn't going to say anything
testify.
anymore.
Yeah, so who knows why that happened. But anyway.
Wait, about his help. When he went to help the cops and he showed them how the maybe criminal would fill up the little capsules.
Oh, yeah. It's in a whole drawing. He signed it like as if he's famous.
Oh, gosh.
And he put not actual size or maybe whatever he did. But he said this is probably how it happened. And he gave some tips. Well, I forgot now what he did when he got out. But he was helping so there was a first team and then years later a second team that was put on.
The task force.
Yeah, and the second task force, he says, yeah, I'm going to do this for you. And he lays out this whole hypothesis or whatever, that how this could have happened, and another one, I guess. And anyway, but then he backs out and he says, yeah, no, that could be held against me, so I'm not going to help you
right.
now.
So he was out.
Yeah, but he loved the attention, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm sad that he was never held accountable for this crime, if indeed he did do it. He passed away. He lived in the Boston area, New York area, something like that, and he died. And they didn't say that he killed himself. They didn't say that he was killed. They just said they found him on the floor of his apartment, and he was confirmed dead.
Yeah. Did you see when, I forget that, is it Brad? That
the
anchor?
new guy. Oh, the one who's doing the documentary.
Yeah, I've seen him this before. But anyway, when he went to his apartment, did you see him?
Yeah.
He looked creepy.
He looked like he was nuts.
And that James said, no, that's not me. That's not me. Yeah. And every single detective that this Brad reporter showed the video to, they're like, oh, that's him. Yeah. And they're shaking his head like, unbelievable. All of them confirmed that's definitely him.
I just hope and pray that whatever is going on right now, because it's still an active investigation, I do hope and pray that they will come to some conclusion. As they were pointing out in the documentary, many of these people are passing away. Obviously, James passed away, other witnesses have passed away, detectives have passed away, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I hope they come to a conclusion. However, even if they don't, guess what? You can't hide from?
The Lord.
The Lord, you cannot hide from the Lord.
Right.
So justice is served. It's just not always served up here.
Yeah, on this side of heaven. I do hope for the families, the victims' families, especially the ones that we saw their hearts. Like, I think his name was Joe Janis.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, Joe Janis, and the daughter, and those friends of the airline stewardess.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I think her name was Peggy or
Paula.
Paula Prince.
Yep.
I hope that,
for peace for them.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to say about this?
No, I think that's it.
Horrific crime. Well, let's share a little bit of God's word, because we can find inspiration and comfort there.
Time.
This is a verse from the book of Luke, chapter 12, verses 6 and 7. It says this: "Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies, yet not one of them is forgotten by God? Indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows." I wanted to select a scripture like that just to point out the value of a human life. Mm-hmm. These lives were taken from this earth, and God purposed each one of them to have a life, and to have an abundant life, and to have connection with Him and connection with others. And this evil came in and took that from this earth, but God doesn't minimize His purpose for them.
No.
And their life goes on today, even though they were taken away so many years ago. Their life goes on today. Their love goes on today in their loved ones. And I do hope for justice in the end.
Yeah.
So that's all I got to say about that.
Well, it's good.
Yeah. A little call to action, as we always do at the end of every podcast. We just wanted to encourage ourselves, as well as everybody listening, to be, vigilant, and to careful as much as you can be about your safety.
Absolutely. Always head on a swivel.
Yeah.
And just be think like that nurse too. Be curious.
Yeah.
Be curious. Be maybe nosy.
Yeah, and no matter how we no matter what's going on or how we appear in life or how we show up in life, let's try to be kind to one another. Let's try to look out for each other, to protect each other. I think it would be good.
Yeah, I just had that conversation with Ellie today. We went to the beach and I was talking to her about things like that. I was telling her about the Tylenol thing. And
had she ever heard of it?
No, she did not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even your daughter Emily, who I thought would probably have heard of it because
I thought
she
that too.
Likes true crime.
And she follows,
different things.
Right, exactly. I'm surprised too. Yeah. I mean, they know all about the Menendez brothers, but that's because of TikTok.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, that's a wrap.
All right.
For today, you've been listening to the Life Happens, Laugh Anyway podcast. I'm still comedian Tracy DeGraff.
I'm still Catherine.
We'll see you next time.